Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you're joining us. This is Blue Rock Station Sustainable Living Center's online free school, and I'm your current moderator, Aaron Joseph. This is a live broadcast with participants from BRS Collective who are joining our teacher and I to participate in this virtual setting. But you could also be listening to this recording on Blue Rock Station's YouTube channel. Welcome. Eduardo Sandoval is our current free school teacher, and he will be sharing with us some useful cooking techniques and tips as we loosely follow the recipe he has provided. Our goal in creating this virtual platform is to help others learn and understand how they can become more resilient in their own lives, and we hope to help you empower yourself to realize that you have gifts and skills to share with us and the world as well. BRS's online free school is just one avenue where you can access content connected with Blue Rock Station. Owners Jay and Annie Warmke host their own podcast called When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine, which can be found on all major podcast platforms. And they have also just released high definition, professionally produced educational videos through steader.com. A free virtual tour of Blue Rock Station's Living Center can be found on steader.com, and links will be provided in the comments section for further exploration. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our current instructor and one cool dude just cooking in the kitchen, Eduardo Sandoval. How's everything shaking today, sir? Please grab the mic and your knife and teach us all your cooking chops.
Everything's going good, man. Nothing but good vibes in this kitchen. I will start off by saying, one thing that if you're familiar with, like Ayurvedic, how do you say that? Ayurvedic. That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, you got it.
Right? Kind of philosophy is the intention that you put into cooking has some kind of contribution to how your food will turn out. If you guys, what's that movie? Like Water for Chocolate, something like that. Some international film kind of explores that idea, so maybe, like don't bring negative energy into your kitchen if you don't want everyone at the table crying and pouring their hearts out. But I always like to, before anything, kind of just shake off any negative energy and try to put, positive energy, loving energy into my food and try to make it, really just rich with that kind of vital, energy source that supports the life. Because at the end of the day, we need to eat to survive. We need to eat to have energy to carry on with our day. So, having a good attitude either is just going to allow you to be more present in your cooking, which can also create a sort of meditation that is relaxing. I don't know, maybe not everybody likes to cook. I like to cook. But also just, I genuinely think that it makes the food taste better. I don't know. If there's anybody who wants to apply science to that, hit me up. Anyways, so that's my little, tip of the day. Just to have a good attitude about cooking, even when washing dishes. I don't really like washing dishes, but I try my best to have a positive attitude about that. Because if you have clean dishes, you got the ability to make good food. You don't got clean dishes, well, you got to wash them and then make your food. So, anyways, cause and effect.
You're putting that good energy into the food for sure. I think
sure.
In Greek they call it meiraki, MERAKI. Call that positive energy. So, yeah.
My man, Aaron is just a knowledgeable person all around. So
you are just as knowledgeable.
Yeah, big ups to Aaron Joseph once again for being our moderator this week. He did a great job last week. He has really been helpful to make this all happen, like he was saying. Big ups to Andy and Jay at Blue Rock Station. This is kind of happening through their network and through all the kind of Blue Rock Station alumni and some. So thank you to everybody participating. And let's get to some good food. Essentially, what we're making today, I don't really know if it has a term or a name. It's just more or less a kind of potato stir fry. And I think that really, it's a simple meal. Once again, it's made with foods that have a pretty resilient shelf life. That's kind of one of my key things right now. And it will also yield a lot of food very easily. So it doesn't really, like the balance between how much effort it takes to make versus how much food you can actually have is, pretty efficient. And also, it really doesn't demand that much. So I'll kind of run you through this meal. This is actually a little sentimental for me because this is one of the first, like when I first started cooking, this was one of the first things I learned from my family. And I, kind of got interested in cooking because I like the concept of just being able to be resilient and self-efficient, being able to like provide for myself. And I also started developing a lot of kind of, you call it, just kind of choices as to what I wanted to consume. I started to have a more narrow like vision of what kind of food I want to eat, and in order to satisfy that, I had to prepare my own food. And really, if you are on the same kind of program, there's nothing better than just making your own food because you know for sure what's in there. There isn't whatever this or that or this or that. You make it how you want it, and to me, that was just really rewarding. And of course, I've messed up food plenty of times. That part sucks. So it is a learning curve. But when you really get it locked in and when you really get to a point where you can make the food that you like, there's nothing more rewarding from that. So this is one of those meals that I learned in the beginning, and I'm going to run you through it so it's easy, not difficult at all. I went ahead and prepared a few things, but I'm going to show you guys more or less how I got there. So I'll start with the potato. And really, you can use any potato. Have just like a red potato here, but you can use any sort of potato. It doesn't really matter. You could even use sweet potato. Actually, as a matter of fact, you can use like any root vegetable. You can make it with a variety of different sort of root vegetables. This is just one way of doing that. So I'm gonna peel it. I got a peeler here, and while that may take a little bit, it really, like I said, for what it's gonna yield is not that much effort. This is probably like one of the more tedious tasks. It's just peeling the potato, and I don't know. I think I've just gotten used to kind of working with the flow of everything. There was a term for it, Aaron. What's the term you used for that concept of being efficient in the kitchen and having that sense of flow?
Well, it's not the mayor key that you're pointing out again, right? Are you talking about the term last week?
Yes, yeah.
Well, as far as like efficiency goes, keeping everything like in its place, they call mise en place. It's
Yes,
a
that's what I'm
French
referring
term.
to.
Okay, cool. I thought that's maybe what you meant.
Yep. Yeah. And I like, to kind of carry true to that idea because, like I said, I have fun cooking. It's not really a chore for me. The reward of it all, the process of the meditation, almost distraction, is really pleasant to me. But of course, it can be unpleasant if I'm not prepared, if I'm not on top of things, when I burn food, when I have dishes stacking up, I got things all over the place. So using this concept of efficiency and just maneuvering around your kitchen, making things, like I got my knives right here, my stove, my countertop right here, all my foods right here. That concept really goes a long way to making this a more enjoyable experience. So what we're gonna do here, I cut it in half. So I cut my potato in half, and I'm just gonna dice it into smaller pieces. And they, can be really as big as you like them to be, but the smaller they are, I believe they cook a little bit faster. And one thing to note is that when you decide whatever size it is you're kind of cutting this into, just make sure you're consistent with like everything else. You'll see why. So I'm just kind of going across long ways a few times and then just going perpendicular to that a few times too. And then we'll have diced potatoes. So like I said, I had gone ahead and prepared some here. Now, one thing I did, and before maybe I throw these in there, I'll show you. I have them in here. You can see I kind of have a pile in there. I threw them in this towel so that it can capture a lot of the moisture from the potato. And what that'll do is that'll help to avoid a lot of it from sticking to your pot just because it's wet. And then when you have water and oil, have a tendency to stick. So if you can cut them beforehand and then kind of dry them, either with a towel or whatever your preferred drying method is, that will help it from sticking to the pot. So another little tip there, and I'll throw these in here. Now I suppose I'll move on to the tomato. And all this is kind of, for the most part, going to go in at the same time. The potatoes will go in a little before everything else just because it has a tendency to take a little bit longer than the tomato, pepper, and onion would cook. But for the most part, they'll all go in just about the same time. So we will get to that in a second. Now I'm just going to essentially, like I said, do the same. I already have a half of a tomato, so I'm just going to slice it into equivalents to what, my potato was. And, you don't really have to do that. You can have whatever random sizes all over the place. But I just find it nicer to stay consistent. And I'll also mention that when you do decide to go maybe the smaller kind of smaller fine diced method, you will learn that you can reuse this dish in a lot of ways. What I mean by that is like you can use it later with other variations. So today I'll probably mainly be having it with like tacos, but more than likely later in the week when, because this thing will yield leftovers. Like I said, it does make a lot. I will probably do like a stuffed pepper thing, and it's really nice when they're like smaller pieces because they fit in the stuffed pepper a lot better. So that's one of my personal favorite. They kind of go hand in hand, you know what I'm saying? Doing this, having it with tortillas one night, and then the next maybe couple nights later, I'll have it in a stuffed pepper. So if you guys want to know how that goes, maybe you can let us know later on, and I can show you my kind of approach to stuffing them in poblano peppers, which I think is really, really good. Anyway, so I got the tomato. I'm gonna do jalapeno. And real quick, you don't have to use necessarily a jalapeno. It can be any pepper, like if you have a red bell pepper, if you have poblano, any sort of pepper that is your preference, you can use and substitute this for any sort of pepper. I think, being Mexican, we utilize the jalapeno a lot, and I just really like the way it kind of sits with everything and the flavor it gives it. So I'm going to use a jalapeno. You can, if you want to leave the seeds, that's just going to add heat to the whole thing. For the sake of, keeping things more neutral, I'm going to take seeds out. And you can see I got the seeds there. All I'm doing is kind of coming in from the side. And then there's a vein that it's attached to. Just trying to cut that vein. And then it should all just come out pretty easily. So once I do that, I will kind of, once again, cut them into proportionate sizes based off everything else that I've been dicing. And I already have a little stack here going, so I'll throw those in there. So if you're wondering how I did that, I just essentially cut the stem off. Cut the stem off there, cut it in half, so you get a half like this, destem it, cut it in half again, and then I just cut it into small pieces going perpendicular to that long slit there. So boom, once again, you got to be mindful that you're dealing with knives, sharp knives, hopefully. Important to have sharp knife. So just be cautious, be mindful. Once again, like I said, you want to try to be efficient and try to be well prepared to avoid an accident, because there's nothing worse than trying to, make food and then you have an accident and you get cut and now your whole dinner is ruined. So that's one way to ruin date night. So I went ahead, chopped the onion. Hopefully y'all did the same. Now I got my onion. I'll throw that in here. I got my onion right here. And man, I don't know if this is like a fact, but I feel like it's not a good onion unless it's making you cry and tear up. That's how you know. That's how you know you got quality onion, is when your eyes are hurting and just really, really, you have to feel that pain. You know what I'm saying? It's all about passion in this kitchen. So if you're not tearing up while you're making this, you don't got that good onion.
Everybody needs to cry a little bit. So
yeah, just man, I'm not gonna go there right now because I'm a crybaby. So I'm also gonna mince up a little bit of some garlic, and if you never peeled garlic, you take it off the bulk. Got a little garlic here. There's a little, what do you call that? Just a little thing, thingy right there. Pull it back, and then just kind of start peeling away. And garlic's good. Garlic just goes well with just about anything. I always like to try to add garlic. One thing, real quick, is I also did go ahead and prepare some beans. I could have specified that probably in the email that went out this week, but I do have a batch of beans already made, so I can quickly go over that. Pretty much, excuse me, I rinse some pinto beans, let them soak in water for maybe about 2 hours at the very least, and then threw them in here. You want to fill up a decent amount of water, not too much, depends on how much you're preparing. You could say maybe like double the water to pinto bean ratio, just kind of like rice, if not a little bit more, and then bring it to like a boil, and then you're going to let it kind of sit there, lower the heat a little bit to a more medium low, and that'll cook for an hour or two depending on your load. And I also have been told that if you throw these bad boys in there, the garlic, it helps with the gases. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I do know soaking them definitely does. Soaking them will help make the beans a little bit easier to digest in your body, therefore avoiding some of those funky gases. So this to be a myth. I don't know the science behind that, but my family always told me that. I don't know if that is necessarily true, but I do think that it adds flavor when you add the garlic and the pinto beans, and they're really good when they're nice and cooked, and then you get to eat them. So there's that. I'm just gonna mince up a few to throw in with my potatoes, and we're gonna kind of toss this all in there. So as far as this recipe goes, like you saw, it really is not much. It might take you a few minutes, but once you got your onion chopped, your tomato, your peppers, your potato, you're just gonna throw it all into a pot. This is a rather big one here. This is like one of the kind of only ones I have to fit this capacity, but essentially you just want a pot deep, a deep one, big enough to kind of hold everything you're gonna throw in there. So I'm gonna heat it up now. And another nice thing about this recipe is it's one of those recipes you can kind of walk away from easily. Once it gets rolling, you'll see you're kind of just letting it sit there and cook. You're not really gonna have to watch it too much. Every once in a while, you're gonna want to kind of turn it over just to make sure it's not sticking. So I'm gonna add a liberal amount of vegetable oil. Like I said, depends how much you're preparing, but for this scenario, let's say about maybe three tablespoons, maybe 2 to 3. And we're going to start with the potato just because that will take a little bit longer to cook than everything else. So once you kind of have patted it down and it's relatively dry, then you're going to want to throw it in there, but just be careful because if it's still a little wet, when you get the oil in there, it will a little splatter, and you don't want to burn yourself because oil is hot. So try to get as much of the moisture out. And as I mentioned before, the smaller the pieces are, the quicker they'll cook. So if you're doing them a little bit smaller than this, you'll want to watch it a little bit more. Kind of adjust your time for that. If they're a little bit bigger, they might take a little longer. Really, it'll be your preference as to how you like your potatoes cooked. But I like them like really soft and just, easy, tender. You'll know either by kind of sticking a fork through or just taking one and eating it. So I'm just gonna let that oil heat up a little bit, and then I'll throw these in there. And while kind of get that rolling, we'll start on our rice. So for the rice, we're gonna have just like a regular kind of long grain rice here. Gonna have vegetable oil and little tomato sauce, and I'll add some spices to it, but you can really add whatever your preferred spices are. This is just gonna be cumin and ground pepper for me. Also optional, but it's very, very helpful and adds a lot more flavor and taste to it. You'll want to have a few cilantro stems. So these I had already kind of picked off the cilantro leaves off it and set it aside, which I'll use then later for either to garnish the rice or to just kind of eat it with my potatoes. So it's a kind of double because just throw this away, but like I said, you throw it in the rice and you'll take it out. You won't leave it in the rice unless you want to, but it just really helps give it that flavor. So
I never thought about doing that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Yep. Have you made Spanish rice before, Aaron?
At some point, I don't think recently, but yeah, you seem to know you got the right recipe going on.
Yeah, it's simple. I mean, you can eat whatever rice you want with it, but like I said, this was one of the first meals I learned how to cook in my Mexican household. So I'm gonna teach y'all it, and I think it's really easy, really good, and very tasty. And I really just make it often. So hopefully you guys can enjoy it. And like I said, it's very easy to kind of take it a whole bunch of different ways, So now that this is getting nice and warm, we're just kind of tossing the potatoes in there, making sure you get them all kind of oily. And I think Kristen mentioned something before, whether or not you actually have to use oil. You don't have to. You can use whatever, whether it be like water or any kind of liquid to get it so that it cooks in water. But I think for me personally, I like the oil because it kind of cooks it, and it also gives it a little crispiness and flavor depending on what kind of oil you use. I just use regular vegetable oil this time, but you can use whatever. Just keep in mind that you don't have to use oil if you're trying to take an alternative to using oil. You can just use water just the same, and that will give everything you need. So if you are using water, you just want to have enough water to where everything in here is like submerged in the water, and it is cooking it, making it so that the potatoes cooking. So once you throw it in there and it's nice and hot, you want to try to kind of cool the heat on here a little bit lower. Keep it on the lower side, that way you don't end up burning it. So it may take a little bit, not really more than 30 minutes to get this all together, but you just want to make sure that you're kind of watching it and you're not burning it. So that's in there. Also going to throw a top on that. And once the potatoes kind of get a head start on here, we'll then from there throw everything else in there. And in the meantime, we're going to start the rice, put the beans off to the side. So for the rice, once again, vegetable oil, rice, ham.
Kristen has a question for you.
Ask me the question, Kristen.
Well, you might be just about to answer it. I was just wondering, so I put the tomato in my rice. Are there other spices you would recommend as someone who does not love cilantro?
Sorry, so can you repeat that question? It kind of got a little choppy there.
Besides for tomato, what else should I be adding to the rice?
Besides tomato?
Yeah, anything?
So was your question like you want a substitute for cilantro?
Yes.
Okay, so if you don't like cilantro, then don't worry about it. It's optional. Not a problem at all. The cilantro will give it a cilantro flavor. Yeah. Some people really enjoy the taste of cilantro. Some people don't. So don't even worry about that. I personally like cilantro. If you go to a Mexican household, this is a very typical way of preparing it. We eat hella cilantro. And I think that Brenda's saying you can add cumin, which
okay,
I can see you adding cumin seeds. I don't know if that's what you refer to. I'm definitely going to add cumin powder. So there will be spices, right?
That was my question.
Yeah, but as far as like actual kind of foods, like whole foods, you don't need to worry about that. You know, that's just something extra. But you can definitely add whatever spices. You can add curry in there if you want to add curry. It doesn't matter. It's just your preference. This is just kind of a basic Mexican rundown.
Okay. I was just curious what spices were coming so I could start gathering them.
So yeah. Yep, cumin for sure, black pepper. If you like salt, once again, I'll give a disclaimer that I don't really use salt all that often. So if salt is your jam and you use it with just about everything, then definitely salt. You just won't see me using salt because I don't consume salt really. So just also disclaiming that. Now, right now I am going to pop this can of sauce open because I want to be ready when the time comes to sauce it up. So we'll get this going to a nice heat right here. Oh, that means it's the back. Alrighty. Try to heat your oil maybe on a medium heat here. And Kristen brought up a good point last week. Everybody's stovetops, whether it be gas, whether it be electric, they're all different, right? So you're gonna definitely want to be mindful of that. Like you're gonna have to just know your stovetop because they're all different. And once you really, you could say, broken it in, then you'll know like what's appropriate. I'm just gonna try my best to like give you a neutral idea. Like here, you don't want it to be too hot. I mean, whenever you're cooking oil, you never really want it to be too hot, you know, because then the oil will begin to burn and you can have an accident, you know, the oil will literally catch on fire. So you don't want that, you know. Every oil has a different kind of heating temperature, but keep that in mind that you just want to work with your equipment. I'm assuming that wherever you may be, you've gotten familiar with it. If not, you know, it can be a pain. I've done it before where I'm like, oh, I always make this thing at a medium heat. Then I go to make it and I burn whatever I'm making because the medium on this gas top is not the same medium as one on an electric gas or electric stove top. So definitely try to just kind of play around. And if it's a new kind of burner or whatever, maybe kitchen top, just make sure you're being mindful and be like just very attentive to make sure that you know what kind of the operating range is. So that was a very, very good point because, like I said, I've done that plenty where I was like, oh man, I make this dish on medium high always. That's the go-to when I was at my mom's house. And then once you get to that point where you're in a new place and you got your own crib and you're like, I'm about to make this, and you burn it. That's the most unfortunate. So, Aaron, do you have any advice for someone who just completely fucks up their dinner? You know what I'm saying? Like you're just
Depends
don't
on what
mess
it
it.
is.
You're like, oh man, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna make this dish for me and my girlfriend, and you're super stoked on it, and then you just fuck it up. You burn it,
Oh
or
man,
it
so
doesn't come
I've
out how
like
you want it to.
I would say if it's already messed up, that can be an issue. If it's like burnt bread, you can scrape it with a knife. I've done that with like a grilled cheese, but
Yeah.
man, adding too much salt can be an issue. You can sometimes dilute things. I do know a trick. If you have a sauce that's broken, meaning like you cooked it too much and all the oil like seeps, like separates. If the sauce is still hot, add cold water and stir it and reheat it. If it's cold and it's separated, add hot water. A chef taught me that. So there's something you can do as far as a meal if something goes wrong. Yeah, I've had that go awry a few times where I just kind of end up with crap food, and if it's a recipe I'm willing to try and mess up and just see how it goes. I think it's worthwhile to try it. So yeah, keep going, Eduardo. You're doing good, man.
Yeah, I'm by no means like a professional, I would say. But I keep myself alive. I keep my belly full. I enjoy cooking. But of course, it's been trial and error. I've messed up many dishes before, and of course, like it's vital, right? You have to eat to live. You're hungry at the end of it, and then you got this shit meal. And you're just like, like I just invested 2 hours to making this, and it tastes horrible. So it's like, I think a matter of just having that mentality, saying, you know what, this is a learning experience. I fucked up here. I maybe put too much salt there, a little bit too much oil here. Make notes, and if it's salvageable, then you'll just learn from it and eat it at its not most tastiest. If it isn't, hey, that's a fine excuse to have your favorite carryout or dinner place, because sometimes you're like, I shouldn't be spending so much money eating out. I should be trying to cook at home. Then when you're there, you're like, hey, I tried cooking at home, but I couldn't do it. So I'm gonna have that $15 North Star burger.
It's worth. Yeah, I feel you on that one.
So I would never discourage anyone from not trying to like cook. Give it a shot. Anybody can cook, man. It really is just a mathematical science. There's nothing to it. Just all you have to really know in the beginning is how to follow instructions for the most part. If you're following a recipe, there's some technical terms that you may not know, but hey, we all have access to Google, I think, for the most part. If not, call somebody, ask somebody, call me. If you need help dissecting the recipe, call me and I'll help you. I'll be your lifeline. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
But
Nick just asked the question. Nick
yeah.
joining us, he said, did Eduardo just put uncooked rice right into the oil?
Oh, yeah. So I was about to get to that before I was ranting on about whatever. So, yep, I'm pretty much frying the rice right now, right? You want to throw it in there. I got about two cups of rice in here. I'm going to let that just kind of cook until it's starting to turn a little brown. You don't want to let it cook too much. You don't want to get black or anything, just a little kind of toasty brown. Make sure that you stir it often, get the oil all up in there. And then from there, we're going to add our tomato sauce, cilantro. I'll add even, maybe I'll add this right now.
So what's the purpose of that, Eduardo? Because I really
That's to
haven't done
cook
that
it.
either. To toast
That's
the
that's how
rice.
you're gonna cook it. So you're gonna cook it like that to begin with. So that will allow the rice to build like a very kind of, how would I say, more of like a, I don't want to say crunchy, but like what's the word?
Al dente, maybe?
Al diente, you know this? Al diente. Just a more like, okay, you know how like steamed rice is more soft and it's more like chewy?
Yeah.
More like fried rice, yes. Thank you, Kristen. I mean, it's fried rice. That's what it is. It's fried rice. This is fried rice.
That's fried rice. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Nick and I were trying to figure out.
Yep. So this is fried rice, essentially, and it's gonna give it a more kind of like a fried texture. How about that for fried rice?
Awesome.
So you, like I said, you want to stir that often. You want to see it like turn a little brown, but you definitely do not want to let it get burnt, because then your rice is burnt. Which at the end of the day, it's not going to be the end of the world. But you definitely want to have a pleasant, good meal. So toss this, make sure that it's just, barely kind of browning. And then once you do that, you'll throw in your liquids, and then we'll let this kind of simmer for a little while. But real quick, just want to mention that if you don't have vegetable broth, no matter, you can use water just the same. You can use those, what do you call them? Those like little like chicken flavoring cubes with your water to give it, to give it flavor. I primarily eat vegan, so I'm not going to do that. But the vegetable broth is really just to give it added nutrition and added flavor too. So that's why I'm going that route. But you can use water just the same. So now that this is beginning to kind of brown, I'm gonna throw my tomato sauce in there, the root, and let me lower that just a bit so it's not popping like that. So this is just an 8 ounce can. I'm gonna throw this in there. I might kind of tear it apart. And real quick, before I throw in my liquid, I'm gonna toss that in there. Make sure you get the tomato just all up in there, So tomato sauce first. Cover your rice in the tomato sauce. Oh, look at that. We want it to look red. Red, you hear me? Not white. We want that red. Oh, yeah. Personally, my favorite color is green, but
thanks for letting us know. Thanks, Eduardo. I'm glad you made that apron that's green.
Anyone have a recipe for green rice?
Pesto rice or?
Oh, my man! Who's got that? I'm through with that.
That sounds good. We should try it.
Real quick. Just once again, want to encourage people to share their recipes if they have anything like that. Please step up. Let us know. Let me or Aaron know. We actually have a Word document that you can kind of just add on and see what slots are available for a free school program. So
for those that might be listening on YouTube on that recommendation, you have to be prior approved by Annie Wormke. I'll just point that out to you. So
the boss. That's the boss.
The
boss couldn't be here today because she's up to some boss business. But she out there, so big ups to Annie Wormke once again. So I'm gonna throw a little bit cumin. This is the time to kind of spice it up. And one thing, this is general rule, going back to the concept of avoiding fucking things up. You don't want to go too much with spices, because you can always come back and add more spices. That's a general rule for anything, you know what I'm saying? For the most part, you don't want to add too much, because then later on you can't add any more. So if you add too much and then your thing tastes like too much of something, well, boo-hoo. If it doesn't taste like enough, you can always add spice later. So
Good
I'm going
call.
to just kind of add some pepper and cumin. You can add whatever you want at this point, but definitely just kind of take it easy, and then when it's kind of simmering, maybe you'll have a little bit, try it. If you feel like it needs a little bit more something, then you'll add that. And now I'm going to add my vegetable broth. You want to add just enough to kind of cover it, so enough to really kind of let it simmer. That's kind of how it's gonna like finish cooking, is through like a simmer. So you just want to add enough to kind of cover it all. And
Are you going to need to cover that?
yeah, we'll cover it.
Just curious. I haven't cooked rice without covering it. So it's just,
Yeah.
you'll get
No,
to that.
don't worry. Don't be scared, Aaron. So
You got it under
should be,
control.
Yeah. It should be a nice red
Okay.
consistency.
Kristen's wondering, how long will you cook it for, the rice, with the broth in it?
Yeah, like maybe like 20 minutes maybe.
Okay.
So not that long at all, it won't be too long. But it kind of goes hand in hand with everything else you're doing. So you want to bring that kind of like a high heat, let it boil. And the potatoes, I should have mentioned, you probably saw me doing it, but you want to be watching your potatoes, making sure that they don't get too did, because then, you still have to add your other ingredients. So you can see, and I just want to give a shout out to my awesome girlfriend for giving me this stand so I can hit those angles. Those angles right now are killer. You see that? Boom, in there. And this is the onion, this is the pepper, this is the tomato. And that's definitely going to cook a little bit, quicker than the potatoes. That's why you want to throw the potatoes in first, and then you want to come forth with all that stuff. So once you got that in there, you're also just going to kind of mix it up. And you're going to be surprised to see how much you got in there. I didn't necessarily give you a proportion of how much to how much earlier, but really you're just going to feel it out. It's going to be different. You maybe don't want as much tomato with your potato. You want more pepper. You even it out. But I did about 3 potatoes, 2 jalapenos, 2 tomatoes, 2 onions, and that gives us, what I got in there.
It's a lot of food.
It's a lot of food. So I'm going to also add a little bit chili powder. Just a little bit.
Do you have a preference for a chili powder? Are they all the same to you, or?
I mean, yeah, right. I think that, spices are always gonna vary in their, nature, because we're dealing with food here. Nothing, well, I mean, you should be dealing with food. Let me just say that, because that's the whole concept behind GMOs, is that we're trying to create a product that's consistent. But if you're dealing with natural, organic foods, things are going to vary. So one chili powder might not be the same as the next. Now, this is a Frontier Co-op. I think that's a good chili powder, really. I think if you ever have the option of hitting that bulk section, I would definitely recommend it.
Kristen's holding her chili powder up. It's the same one.
Is that the same one?
Yep.
What's up? So if you can, like, go to your local co-op, sometimes, if not most of the times, they will have the like bulk section spices. I think that's a great way to go about it. I think this is even the people that do the bulk spices. I don't know if anyone can confirm that. Frontier Co-op. I always see their spice, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if you have access to one, definitely hitting that bulk is the way to go. So I'll add a little bit pepper to those potatoes too. So all I did was add chili powder, pepper, oregano, and like I said, start off light, let that kind of go. At this point, your potatoes should be pretty much done, and everything else is just kind of going to really melt in with it. So real easy, as you saw, like I was able to make my rice and kind of step away from that and come back to it. But you want to try to keep it on a low heat, because I've definitely kind of walked away before and forgot to lower the heat, and then you're going to get pieces of potato that are burned, which maybe that's what you want. I don't mind my potatoes being a little crispy, but the way I typically aim for is for them to be kind of tender and soft and mushy, and you'll see it's. So I added a few spices in there. That's gonna just continue cooking. At this point, you're just cooking the onion, the tomato, and the green peppers.
Kristen
Depends, like I
said,
said,
Kristen said she's got some good smells going on with that combination.
of which is she making this? Yo,
She's
who's making this right now?
Yeah, she's waving her hand, so she's following it pretty closely. Is that right, Kristen? Yeah, yeah, she's pretty
All
much
right, we'll
doing what you're
see.
doing.
That's my faithful, my number one fan right now, Kristen. I haven't done it wrong. We made the sweet potato curry last week. For those of you who weren't here, and you can ask Kristen how that went. That was pretty good. I thought so.
She's nodding her head yes. That's really
See,
good.
that's the approval. So once you kind of see that your shingy ding ding here is kind of boiling, lower the simmer, the heat to simmer, and let that kind of just chill for a while, and you'll begin to see the kind of rice absorb all of the water and the tomato, and then you should have a pretty fine al dente, as my partner here put it,
To
and
the
that will
tooth.
be to the tooth is what that means apparently. So that will be just really nice and have more of a crisp, kind of more hard texture than just kind of regular steamed rice. So real quick, does anyone have any questions or want to make any comments?
Yeah, anybody, you want to give me a thumbs up, or you can comment. Nick's good. I think we're all okay.
Yes.
Linda is. Oh, Kristen said yum.
Alrighty. Cool. Yeah. I wouldn't do you guys dirty. This is good food. And if you followed your receipt, or I don't know, if you do stuff like that, you'll see that this is like, I don't know, I'm gonna say like $20. You can make this meal under $20. And this is food for like 2 or 3 days. If you got kids, I don't think any of us have kids. You got kids, you got like 6 kids. This is what you're making. That's why we made it in my household. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm saying, this is just something that comes together real easily. It's pretty cheap and it's good. So I will suggest this when you are kind of just in need of something simple, don't want to break the bank, don't want to spend like a crazy amount of time in the kitchen, and you want to have leftovers. So I'll say this is one of my go-tos for the days that I'm not trying to be too creative. Like you've seen here, this is not that complicated. Now, I have my beans here. You can make the beans, like I was saying, just kind of standard by boiling them, or personally, I love refried beans. Seems like I might have a little time here. Would anyone care to see my process for making refried beans? What's the general consensus here?
Kristen's about it. Yeah, I think
Yeah?
Nick is too. So yeah, hit
All
it
right.
up, man.
I love refried beans. For real. I mean, I'm Mexican, so that's just like
I've never
that's
made
what
them,
I.
actually. I've never made them at home, so I'd like to see this for sure.
All right. Real easy, real quick. I'll just make a few. Not gonna make too many. So we'll take like a smaller pan here. We're going to heat a little bit of oil. And remember, don't forget about your potatoes because it's easy to forget about them. Easy to forget about them. Don't forget about them. Be good to your potatoes and they'll be good to you. Look at that. Oh man, can you guys see that? I'm sure.
Oh, looks good.
Yeah, it's looking good in here. So that right there, that's gonna be ready. I mean, at any point now, you know, I would consider that ready. But if you want it to be more cooked, if you want the peppers to be a little bit more cooked, the tomatoes to be a little bit more cooked, you can let it go as long as you want. So I would consider that ready. So I'm gonna turn that off, and I'll just let that kind of heat in its own heat, cook in its own heat. My my rice is looking good too. Checking the rice. Maybe lower that a little bit. So before I get started with this, we'll make sure everything else is good. Quality control in my kitchen. We're gonna heat this. Small little pan here on a medium, maybe a little medium, lower medium heat. It's a smaller pan. There's some just vegetable oil, whatever it is you like, up in there. Maybe a tablespoon. And you're gonna want one of these bad boys. Let me show you what you're gonna want. I should have probably ran you through that before. So you're gonna want you gotta have the right equipment, you know? Right equipment here. You're gonna want this tool here that helps extract, you know, solids from water.
We call that a spoon.
A
No, I'm just
spoon.
kidding. No,
This is this one. I know this one. This is a masher.
that is
Critical
it.
tool. And you don't.
Yeah. That's a
This
cool
is like-
looking tool. I haven't seen one quite that looks like that, but yeah, that's really cool.
And this is to get a little bit of the liquid out because you'll want some of that liquid.
A ladle. It's a good ladle.
A
there.
ladle. Yes, a ladle. So once you kind of get your oil heated up, also you're going to make sure that your beans are cooked properly before doing this. You know, make sure that they're ready to go because this is not really cooking it. This is more just kind of taking it to that next level. Brings it back home. Back home to the motherland. So yeah, this is just going to really like kind of take it from this form to the refried form. So make sure they're cooked real well.
Okay.
And like I said, I learned all of this. These are my basic essentials when I first started. I had this for probably every 5 days of my week when I first started cooking, because this is like the only thing I knew how to cook. Very simple though. So once this is hot, you're gonna take your thing. Oh, Kristen, you want to just speak forth and I'll answer your question?
Yeah, here. Oops, go ahead. Sorry.
Do you always just cook your beans in water? I always just cook my beans like in a pot by themselves. But maybe I've been doing it wrong my whole life. Who knows?
What do you mean by themselves?
Like how you have yours cooking in the water right now?
Yeah.
I would just have them in the pan and almost just like keep swirling them. Is that atypical?
With water.
No.
Oh, it's just like from being. I don't understand your process. Please explain.
So if I like am cooking beans that I've soaked, I'll like soak them overnight. And then I cook them in a pot, but I don't add water.
Oh, so how do you cook them? Just the heat? That's it?
Yeah.
I guess that's another way of doing it. I've never done it that way.
Maybe your way seems safer. Maybe I should try. I'm gonna try it for sure.
So they cook with heat.
Yeah.
They just, yeah, no, I haven't done it that way.
I
That's
trust
interesting.
you more than me, so this is good
No,
to know.
no. If that works for you and you haven't had, obviously you haven't had problems.
No.
But I've never done it that way. I've always been told to do it this way. I think the nice thing about this is, it's one of those things, once again, that's easy. You can kind of walk away from it. I think that's good enough. So as you can see, I'm going to try to turn the heat down a little bit. I just removed the solid from the water there. I am going to add a little bit of this liquid, just enough to kind of cover it. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart. I haven't done this in a while, but I believe the move here is add a little liquid, throw it in there so it has, some liquid, because you want your kind of fried beans to be a little bit, moist. I don't know if that's the right word. You know how fried beans be kind of liquidy and moist?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going for still. And then take your masher and mash it. Mash it with pride and fierceness. So
is it typical if you're not following a vegan diet to add lard?
sorry, what was that?
Of adding lard to the refried beans? I've heard of some people doing that, like animal fat.
Oh, if you're not, yeah, for sure. You can add animal fat. You can add, when I put the oil in the beginning, that would be like a time to add the oil fat, because oil fat, like, is essentially an oil, right?
Yeah,
like a cooking property. So if you want to make your beans with oil, like a animal fat, for sure, by all means, go ahead. That just helps give it a little bit texture and also helps it to not stick necessarily. But that and whatever spices you want to add. If you want to add another spice in there, go for it. But this is pretty simple. Like I said, this is not rocket science here, but this is how you make refried beans. Real easy. And if you don't have a professional masher like mine, you can just use a cup, use anything. That's actually probably the most common household way of making it is with a cup, just use like something flat like that maybe, and just bloom, go to town on it. All you're really trying to aim for is to break that up in there. So once you've done that, let it kind of cook down a little bit until it's a little bit thicker, and then you'll have refried beans.
Oh yeah, looks great.
So I don't know if you guys can see this rice. It's looking.
Hold it up to the camera. Right. Can you just hold that pan kind of close up to your view or our view?
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit better picture. Just hold it there for a second.
Ready?
Oh, looks great.
Yum yum. That's not yum yum. So at this point, you can take the cilantro out. If you use the cilantro stems, you can leave it in there, but not everybody wants to eat cilantro stems. So
yeah,
like I said, that was mainly just to give it flavor. And once that's out, you're pretty much ready to serve. And you can also, you might have seen this, but you can also put in like peas or I don't know, green peas, corn, whatever kind of little like veggies like that, of that nature, like small little things. Some people even add like tomato, like they'll actually add like slices of tomato, So if you want to add that kind of stuff, that's definitely taking it like a step beyond. But by all means, go ahead, and do things how you want to do it. I'm just trying to give you a guideline and maybe inspire something you didn't really think about before. But there's really so many ways you can go with this. And I think in general, that's a lot of my dishes, is just kind of making it so, there's a lot of room for kind of adjustments to take it different ways. And if anything, I'm excited to know how you guys customized it or how you guys pimped out your beans.
Once we post this to YouTube, for those that watch it on there, or however you absorb this material, feel free to comment on YouTube, and we'll share those comments with Eduardo.
That is me. So I'm going to try this rice. And another good indicator if your food's going to taste good is if it smells good. If it doesn't smell good, it might not taste good. Not always, though. Not always the case. There's definitely things that don't smell the best, but they taste amazing.
How's it tasting?
That tastes like Mexico.
Like the soil in Mexico is. I'm trying to figure this out.
More like the polluted air and smog in Mexico cities. That tastes good.
I wish I could taste that. You want to send me a little?
I mean, yeah.
Grubhub to stop by your house and you can start a to-go program.
Come through, man. Come through. I'm like a food bank right now. So the potato should be ready. Let me try that too. See what's up with that potato. This is just been sitting here, and it'll stay pretty hot. But this is a good time also to kind of bite in there and see where your flavors are.
Yeah, Kristen said hers is tasting pretty good.
Oh, nice.
Delicious was the word.
And also, one thing to notice is that if you look at this dish, it represents the colors of Mexico. You got the white,
yeah.
You got the red, you got the green. So,
perfect.
Viva Mexico.
Oh yeah.
I like that. I know it's going to be good because I make it all the time.
Yeah, te gusta?
I'm going to add me gusta mucho.
Okay.
I'm add a little bit more chili powder. A little bit more. I'm just going to add a little bit more of all these spices.
Yeah, like you said.
Oregano.
Add light to start and then add a little bit.
And then follow up. Yep. So everything here is tasting pretty good. I'm just kind of waiting on my refried beans to kind of cook down a little bit. You'll notice that really it's preference. If you want them to be a little bit more liquidy, then they're ready to go. Right now they're definitely more kind of thick, like a nice dip. So that's pretty ready to go. I'm gonna turn that off now. So at this point, all I would do, and maybe you're not a big fan of tortillas, but I'm gonna heat up some tortillas. That's what us Mexicans do. So
yeah,
that's about it for this recipe. I think that, like I said, it's pretty easy, but very filling. You got starches, beans, you know what I'm saying, rice. Like, it's really a simple, inexpensive, I would consider entry-level meal, and makes a lot. So you'll have leftovers. Then from there, you can do, like I said, stuffed peppers. You can do tacos. You can do whatever, man. You can have it as a little side dish with maybe spaghetti. Just you can eat at it throughout the week. It'll have about maybe a week shelf life, if you refrigerate it. But definitely the best way enjoyed is fresh with a group of friends and family. So I think that I'm about ready to eat. Did anybody else have any questions, comments, any suggestions, anything that they want to communicate to me?
Kristen, Chad.
Thanks, Eduardo. That was awesome.
Yeah, Chad's great, man. He's enjoyed it. I'm just gonna read the outro, and then we'll see. We'll just do that.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone who has joined us live today, as well as those who are watching this recording. We've enjoyed creating this content for you, and we sincerely appreciate you giving us your time. Please keep an eye out for future free schools by connecting with Blue Rock Station's email newsletter through their website, or by subscribing and liking this YouTube channel. Next week, April 26th, I will be the instructor teaching everyone how to bump up their immune systems through lifestyle tweaks, and I will be making some delicious fermented coleslaw for you to eat as a cheap and easy probiotic. On May 3rd, Nicholas Anderson will be teaching a free school about survival skill techniques, and the week after that, May 10th, will be taught by Chad Cully, who will be giving us a tour of his food forest backyard and instruction on cultivation. May 17th, Ryan Evans will be informing us on the topic of activism through graffiti. Don't also forget to tune in to Jay and Annie Warmke's podcast, When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine, which will be linked in the comments below, as well as links for their fabulous Stetter.com content. Thanks again for joining us today, and we hope you stay tuned into future free school lessons. Until next time, see you on the flip side, all you cool, self-reliant people on Mother Earth. Adios.